Well, my name is Carol Bridges, and I'm the owner of Second Stitch Sewing Studio, just a few steps down Ash Street. In fact, it's all the same building. If you just could break through the walls, you'd be there. So I've been a maker all my life. My parents came to the Columbia Basin and built a farm in the early 50s in Othello. They built a house, a barn, a farm. They dug out irrigation ditches. They planted their fields. They planted an orchard. They planted gardens. I don't actually remember them hiring anybody to do anything. I just thought I didn't know you could do that. I just thought you had to do everything yourself. They raised cows for their meat and their milk, and they made hand-cranked ice cream and butter and everything. Everything from scratch, canning, preserving, everything. So I came from maker family, and it comes naturally to me. My mother was very kind or crazy enough to allow me to use her sewing machine at such a young age that I couldn't even reach the pedal. Sometimes I'd have to bring it up onto the table and use my hand and like this. When I was 9, I joined 4-H and I made a tea towel. I don't even know what a tea towel is anymore, but I made a tea towel and I made a apron. And that was the beginning of something I continued until I was 18 years old. My mom sewed for us, but eventually she quit that and told me to do it myself. And in fact, she started having me do sewing projects for her and for my father. Have you ever seen a square dance dress? You know, they got like rows and rows of gathering, and it's like miles of fabric. It's miles of fabric. I made a lot of dresses for my mom for square dancing, and a matching shirt each time for my dad. It was good practice for me because my mom is not one of those traditional sizes. She's like a size 10 and like a 17, 18 and like a 14 and she's short. So yeah, I did a lot of fitting. And I made my wedding dress when I got married, partly because I didn't want to spend the money on a ready-made one. I kind of do things on the cheap. And when my kids were born, I made all their cloth diapers. And then I started sewing for them for everything. In 1981, my husband bought me a beautiful new home sewing machine. And I was just horrified at the price. I had no idea it was going to cost so much. So I said, well, I'm going to make sure this thing pays for itself. And I started keeping a journal of everything that I sewed. I wanted to make sure. I kept that journal for years, and eventually the journal turned into 2 journals, and finally I thought, okay, this paid for many times, and I threw them away. I wish I would have kept those. That would have been good. I made all my kids' clothes, from their underwear. I shouldn't say this because one of my sons here, he would not like me saying underwear in front of people, but underwear to their coats. No, but I did make his shirt. I did do the shirt thing. So yeah. So he always designs his own shirts, and then I make them. But see, he's got these long arms, in case you didn't notice. So you do some altering and fitting. I got distracted here, didn't I? Talking about underwear and coats.
Making your kids strong.
Yeah. When my daughter, Kristen, was about 7 years old, I was downtown here on 3rd Avenue by the penny store. And those of you who've been here a long time know that we used to have outdoor sales, you know, they call them sidewalk sales, right. And we were having a sidewalk sale, and they just bring everything right out into the streets. Streets are all blocked off. And I was walking with my little 7-year-old Kristen, and I saw this cute little dress, and it was like $5. And so I thought I could make it for $5. So I thought I'm gonna buy this. So I took her into Penny's, and we walked in. They had by the stairs. They had this little dressing room, and it was like closet sized. And I took my daughter in there in this little tiny room that didn't have any windows or light switches or anything, and I told her we were going to try on this dress, and she was terrified. She was looking around, and she just wanted to get out of there. And that's when I realized I never bought her dress before. I'd never take her in a dressing room. She didn't know where she was, and here I was taking in there, tell her to take off her clothes, and she was like, what are we doing? I want out of here. And I finally just bought the dress because she would not cooperate. And I explained to her, some people buy their clothes and they have to try them on. But fortunately, the dress fit. I don't know how I got it all done. when I look back at old photographs, I see, gosh, I made those curtains. Gee, I made that tablecloth. I made those bedspreads. I made the pillows. I made those stuffed animals. I made everything that I see. I upholstered the chairs. When my oldest was school age, we decided to homeschool. And so we continued with that with all 4 of our children. And I really loved homeschooling. And partly it was because you could make stuff all the time. Holiday decorations, art projects, and the kids had to do it too. I can make an art project out of anything. One of my most memorable projects was a coat that I made for myself. It was in the 80s, I think. It was back when velvet couches first came out. You know, they're real smooth. They had like a landscape or something on them. And I found this fabric for upholstery, and I made a coat out of it. But everywhere I went, strangers would stop me and ask me about this coat. I felt like, a pregnant woman when she gets the big belly and everybody comes up and they want to touch it, and she's like, why? Yeah. But everybody wanted to touch my coat, and I finally quit wearing it because I was tired of being petted and stroked by complete strangers all the time everywhere I went. But it was really it was an interesting experience. I really liked the coat, just not the attention. Here's another interesting sewing memory I have. I made dresses for bridal attendants for a local wedding in a hot August day. I put them all in the back seat of my car, and I put my 2 youngest children in the car with me, and we headed to the house to deliver this dress. Well, these dresses, a whole back seat full of them. I ran out of gas. Of course I ran out of gas. It was scorching hot, and we didn't have cell phones, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to leave the car and take my kids and try to find, help, because I was afraid to leave these dresses. It was a few days before the wedding. What if somebody stole them? What would I say? And it was hot. I didn't know. But I just sat in the car for a while and prayed for mercy. And finally, here come my husband. I saw him coming down the road, and I was ecstatic. He happened to be coming home at that moment, and he rescued me. Another time, a bride brought me a dress for shortening. She had bought it, and she was so excited about it. She bought it on sale. She was happy with it because it was like a $3,000 dress. I don't remember the price, but at that time it was more than I had. And she said it was the only one left, and they had reduced the price down to less than half price, and so she bought it. But it was way too long, and she knew it was too long, but it was a great price. So she wanted it hemmed. Well, it had a scalloped finish on the bottom. You couldn't hem it. So it had to be shortened from the waist. And so I waited till everybody was in bed, all the kids, and then I scrubbed the table, and then I scrubbed the table again, and then I scrubbed the table again, because I was just paranoid of getting grape jelly on the dress. And then finally I laid this dress out, and I stood there and stared at it for a while, and I thought, I have to take scissors, and I just have to start cutting this, because there's no other way. So I just cut it. It's like 3 or 4 or 5 layers, I don't know. And I cut the skirt off, and then I didn't faint. I was okay. But then I just regathered it. I cut off 5 inches. I regathered it. I sewed it back on, and it was fine. It looked great, but it was terrifying. I just thought, what would I do?
One chance.
What would I have one chance. That's right. One thing that helped me was a friendship that I had with a local lady, Jeanette Munter. Jeanette was an art school graduate, and she was an experienced seamstress, and she was also a perfectionist. And she and I would go shopping together, and we'd go into high-end stores and look at the clothing on the rack, and she would just take the dress down, she'd turn it inside out, look at it, and see how all these ready-made things were done, and how they made the linings, the finishings, the quick, easy tips. And that was very helpful to me. We didn't actually buy any of those clothes, but we looked at them. And we watched VCR, VCR, it was back in those days. VCR videos, we read books about sewing. We helped each other learn every tip and every quick time saver that we found. That is a great way to learn, to find somebody who has higher standards than you. And you can learn from them and learn tricks of the trade. In 1996, we bought the computer place, and I went to work there part-time, and later we bought an internet service, and eventually I couldn't do much sewing anymore.
I started the Firefly Cafe right here in this building. This was my office, only it didn't look this nice. Yeah, you know, the things that get unfinished are the ones that, you know, are yours, your parts. So we bought it in 2007. We sold it in 2014. I wasn't sure what to do next. We moved next door here to Ash Street, and I took some time to think about what I wanted to do. I browsed my bookshelves, my many bookshelves, and I found that they were full of how-to books. They were full of sewing books. They were full of quilting books. They were full of art books and craft books. And I thought, you know what? I think I should do something where I'm making something. That seems to be what makes me happy. I already had all the equipment for sewing, so I decided to do that. I brought everything in from home. Didn't have a big startup price, which is nice, unlike the restaurant. It was a good choice for me. I had lots of leftover girly fabrics, and I started sewing, first of all, for the 18-inch dolls that are like American Girl dolls. I didn't buy a real American Girl doll because they're really expensive. But I got the same size dolls at Target, and I just started making clothing for them. My husband came up with the name Second Stitch Sewing Studio because so many of the fabrics that I used were being repurposed. That's a nice way to say that, isn't it? Mm. They were repurposed from garments that I found on discount day at Goodwill. For instance, these are just made out of somebody's grown-up size large t-shirts. You can make a lot of things out of other people's clothing. This one is made out of a size large ladies denim dress. I'm gonna pass this one around.
That's adorable.
This is for American Girl size dress. So I made some of my dresses from, this one's made from a bed skirt. I don't think this has a fastener on the back yet, but I'm gonna pass this around. So you know the skirts on the sides of the, yeah, well, that's what this was, but I got it for a couple bucks, and I probably can make 20 of those because it was for a great big bed. I made this one out of a tree skirt because I already had the hem. I could still use the hem and everything on it. And then I made
These are so cute.
These are made out of this.
I have an American Girl doll lover at home, and now I'm going to have to spend all this money.
I made this skirt for myself out of a shower curtain.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And this apron I made out of a shower curtain also. It's just a half apron.
Too pretty to get dirty.
Yeah.
I only paid $2 for it. So. Well, some of you probably think that was a clever idea, but I'm sure that some of the other people are thinking, you're wearing somebody else's shower curtain? That is disgusting. But, you know. Well, sewing seems to be kind of a lost art. I like sewing, but maybe because of as a homemaker and a mom, it was something that didn't get undone. Everything you do when you're a homemaker or a mom gets undone. You wash the dishes, they get dirty again. You make the beds, they're unmade in 12 hours. You do the laundry, and immediately it's dirty again. So when you sew something, at least it lasts for a little while. I'm not very artistic, but I am resourceful. I copy things. That's what Pinterest is for, copiers like me. My kids are very artistic, but that's because they got some of their dad's genes. They're so lucky they got some of their dad's genes, not just stuck with mine. But so I have had some very interesting projects come into my studio this year, including a genuine Sherpa rug for repair, some backpacks, some biker patches, and custom table runners for a 12-foot table. It's been fun. When I'm not busy with customers, I can make 5-foot-long sharks for my grandchildren and custom shirts for my son, duffel bags for the foster care program. I sew about 5 days a week, and so far, I haven't got tired of it. Now, some people might consider that like a prison sentence, but for me, a prison sentence would be locked in a room with a TV and nothing to do. If you hear of anybody that needs some altering done or some repairs, a custom sewing job, send them my way. My rates are reasonable. I thank you for listening to my long sewing biography today, and I hope that all of you will be inspired to make something.